Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2265. Today we're going to be talking with a gentleman who's part of a company that has solved something that's near and dear to my heart. You'll learn more about why that is as we get into our talk, but they also have focused on the automotive sector. So be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in sunny Orlando, Florida, with a very special guest by the name of Bill Reidy. Bill, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Mark, thank you, and I am ready, 100%. I'm excited to be talking with you. Thank you.
Well, cool. We're going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart that my listeners or anyone that's really ever been on this show or communicated with me will understand that in a little bit. But first, before I give you a proper introduction and we talk about your company, what's one little thing that maybe people don't know about Bill Reidy?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I've been in the automotive industry almost my entire life, but I actually have a coaching and teaching background. So I went to school to study history. I was coaching basketball, and it's coaching and mentoring people has always been my passion. So I guess I just equated that to a sales and sales leadership career for the most part.
Well, it kind of fits, right? Everybody needs some coaching and mentoring.
Absolutely.
I had a guest on the show who actually became a friend of mine long ago, a guy by the name of Russell Flory, and sadly we lost him last year to COVID, actually right before he was going to come back on my show. And he had created a company called Road Scholars, which eventually was bought up by the Ingram family, where they buy and sell and restore the most beautiful old Porsches on the planet. But what Russell started doing was coaching high-end automotive dealerships, primarily their salespeople, how to interact with these different kind of customers, Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini, Mercedes, very high-end car sales. And he created a very robust business. He would travel all over the country and train people. And so it sounds like you and Russell have a lot in common in the sense of, his nickname was the coach. He loved helping people learn how to interact better with people. Kathy Droz is another past guest I had here who helps specifically women in the high-end automotive industry, selling cars like Mercedes and Lexus and others high-end brands, because women in the sales force, as we may discuss today with what your experience is, are somewhat unique. You don't see a lot of women, although more now than you used to. So you're in good company, some great Cars Yeah alumni here. So we welcome you to the show.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have quite a bit of Highline experience, and I'm going to do a little research on that because I think that understanding how that Highline buyer, goes through their purchase journey, especially on the cars like Porsche and Ferrari are different than somebody that's necessarily just buying an everyday car. So yeah, I'll look into that. Thanks for the tip on that.
Well, absolutely, and you can listen to both those guests. All of my guests have a show notes page here, as most of the listeners know, so you can go back and listen to those shows. And I'll give you a quick story that I think will make you smile. Russell was teaching Ferrari salespeople how to sell Ferraris, and one called him one day after his class. He does a certification type class, and the gentleman said, "Russell, I have a client who wants to buy a Ferrari, but he can't decide between the two models, and I just can't get him to pull the trigger and buy a car." And Russell said, "Nobody buys a Ferrari because they have to. You're fulfilling a dream. Why don't you double his dream and sell him both cars? Recommend that." And guess what?
I love that.
The guy did it, and the guy bought two Ferraris. So there you go. It's understanding the customer, right?
That is a classic example of selling wants, not needs. Right?
Yeah.
There's a decided difference between selling needs than there is selling wants.
Well,
I love
sure.
That. That's great.
Probably the same for high-end homes as well. People are buying second homes, vacation homes. Yeah, they're trying to fill a dream, and they've got the income to do it. Sometimes they just need that little bit of a nudge. But I thought that would bring a smile to your face. So
yeah, that's funny. That's great.
Russell was great. All right, so let's dive into your world. Bill Reidy is the Vice President of Sales at Handwrytten. Now, this is unique, HANDWRYTTEN, but you'll understand what it means in a moment. Global leader in handwritten notes and creators of robotic writing machines that mimic actual handwriting, helping auto dealerships to enhance customer experience through personalized notes for various occasions. Bill has over 30 years of sales leadership and executive management experience, successfully developing and growing businesses across multiple verticals and industries. His passion is coaching and he takes great pride in developing both people and organizations for long-term success. Bill developed a deep understanding of the automotive industry while climbing the ranks at some of the nation's most successful dealerships, just a few including Mile One Auto Group and Penske Automotive Group. Now, there's an organization. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love. They keep the petrol in the tanks here, and we'll be right back. Years ago, when it was time to renew my collector car insurance policy, my carrier's rates went up. Way up, but my usage was the same and I never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. So what's with that? So I turned to American Collectors Insurance. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? Then it's time to look around and call American Collectors Insurance. I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. I saved hundreds of dollars every year and slept better at night knowing my baby was properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provided me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by their history of taking great care of their clients. What could be better than that? So give them a call and ask for a quote today. 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did with American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. 20, 50, or 100 years from now, will there be a workforce to care for the collector vehicles we love? With auto shop programs disappearing across the country, it's a question we enthusiasts have to ask. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these vehicles aren't lost to time. One of the many ways RPM, which is short for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, is accomplishing this goal is through workforce development initiatives. The RPM apprenticeship program enables the next generation of artisans to earn a living while they learn the craft of restoring and preserving these vehicles directly from industry professionals. The Endangered Skills Program documents the process of masters training future craftspeople on a variety of critical skills in danger of being lost forever. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of the collector vehicle skills trade, visit RPM Foundation today. They're one of the charities of choice here on Cars Yeah! So, Bill, let's dive a little deeper into your past. I want to talk a little bit about your business experience first before we get into the specifics of Handwrytten, but I'm very intrigued by what you're doing because my listeners know I am a big proponent of handwritten notes. Have been since I was a little kid. Thank you, Mom. She instilled that in me. But I want to walk through your business career first, and I love the idea that you really started as a real coach, and now coaching people is part of your passion. So take us on a little bit of a history journey, and then we'll get into Handwrytten.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So as I mentioned, I was going to school to be a teacher, and I was coaching one of the community colleges in basketball. And quite honestly, I needed a little bit of money because I was working part-time and going to school. So I'd stumbled into a car dealership and met the owner at one point in time, and he offered me a job, to come to work as the general manager's assistant, which, he had kind of a training program. I had sales background. So he offered me $25,000 a year in a company car. And I was like, that sounds great. So I got into the business, and it was really interesting for me. For the first 6 months, my job was to work in every single department. So I worked in parts, I worked in service. I was the receptionist. I sold cars. I worked in the F&I department. I washed cars. So I learned everything about the business, and I gravitated towards the sales and sales management side. So fast forward, I worked for 7 different dealerships in 3 different groups over my career, starting in the kind of the domestic side, Chevy, Dodge, and back in the days when Dodge was 2 things. You either bought a pickup truck or you bought a Caravan. This is the early 90s.
Yeah.
And the business started to unfold and start to change in my career. So, by the early 2000s, it really had become the internet, and I had moved to Highline stores, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, Aston Martin, and that was a tremendous experience. I got to meet some incredible people, lots of athletes, and really got to understand the Highline business at a deep level. So back in 2001, I was working for Penske Automotive Group. We had piloted a software called vAuto, and vAuto was designed really to help dealers better understand how to price and merchandise their cars on the internet to create kind of velocity, right? The business had changed, and that walk-in traffic that you would normally see where people would come looking at cars had moved to the internet. And I fell in love with the software. I really did. I fell in love with it. So in 2003, I decided to leave retail for pretty much all the same reasons that people leave retail, and it's just hours, right? I spent a lot of time at the dealership and oftentimes would miss family events and things like that. And I took a flyer. I got on a plane and I flew out to NADA, and I reintroduced myself to the founder and owner, a guy by the name of Dale Pollock, and he offered me a job. And it was a big change for me. It was a substantially less base salary. I think it was a $42,000 base salary. And he said, if you like vAuto, try selling it. So I did. I started, I went from being a general manager at a Penske dealership to all of a sudden selling vAuto software in my basement.
Wow.
But I loved the product so much, and I loved what it could do to help the industry become more transparent kind of in its process and really reach more people, that I pretty quickly gravitated to leading the sales organization with vAuto. Fast forward about 3 years later after that, and we sold that company to AutoTrader, and I went to work for Cox Automotive for a few more years. Then I spent some time in the industry on the other side of the fence in the service department with a company called KPA, which was the leader in environmental health and safety in the automotive industry, and stayed with them for about 6 years. We ended up selling that company to Providence Equity for kind of a nice chunk of coin, and then I ventured out on my own. I decided it was time for me to kind of take all that experience, and I got into the consulting world. So I was doing sales training and consulting, and had a lot of customers more on the vendor side of automotive. Had a few automotive dealership customers. And then towards the end of last year, I stumbled on Handwrytten. I'd been looking around in LinkedIn, and this popped up, and I was so intrigued by it because in 2001, I actually tried to implement handwritten thank you notes in the Mercedes-Benz dealership that I was running. And I really thought it was such a great practice, right? Especially, where people had given you $40, $50, $60, $70,000. And I always say when you go and you purchase Highline, it's hard to leave that world, right? You can't pull a Mercedes up in your driveway and then all of a sudden come back and not have that Mercedes anymore. You just kind of arrive there. So giving those customers the ultimate in personal care, I thought was really a great way to do it. So I went out and I bought all the cards, and I got the salespeople involved, and I gave them lists every day. And what I found 2 months later is it was very difficult to get people to write cards on a consistent basis.
Yeah, sure.
So when I saw the handwritten technology, I'm like, this is really interesting. And so the more I dug into it and started working with our owner, David Wax, I said, you know what, I think this is something I want to do. I think this is something that every business can use. There's really no barriers of entry, whether it's B2C or B2B. And it's just the time-tested, age-old best practice for both prospecting and customer care. And so off we went. And so I started with them about 5 months ago, and we're looking to try to get every business that we can possibly contact into to kind of the format of putting out handwritten notes and really keeping their customers, on a long-term personal basis.
I think your timing is very good because everything has become so non-personal now. And if you think of the car industry in particular, the age-old day of walking into a dealership and getting swarmed by a bunch of guys. One guy gets you. He's got a plastic tie on. What do I have to do to put this car in your garage today? I mean, all that stuff that is not fun. And I think we all, probably everyone listening today, has experienced going to buy a car should be one of the most fun things you ever do if you're a car person. And I say the old world of car dealerships made it miserable. Terrible. My wife and I, we went to buy our first car right after we were married. I was so angry and walked out of the dealership, and the guy followed us all the way out to the car. And I'm like, I'm not buying a car. Wait, okay, we'll do what you want. Too late, And so now, because of the internet, everything has gone back to not only that, but worse, really, because there's no human interaction for the most part, or very little. And just adding this one little element is why I was so excited about having you on today, Handwrytten. Now, way back in the day, I found a software program that you could put into your computer, and you would actually write your letters, and they would create a program that you could write and then print in your actual handwriting. Now, for Handwrytten, is that what you guys do, or can people pick from different styles so it looks like a handwritten note? How does that work?
Yeah. So first off, I always say it's your message written by a robot, right? So, oftentimes I think that's the big leap for folks is they're like, is it really handwritten? Well, yeah, we're just using technology. So we use real pens with really great ink, a high level of cardstock, but our customers are the ones that format the message. And then from a handwriting standpoint, from a style standpoint, we have over 35 different handwriting styles that we use, and they're actually derived from actual handwriting. So we have the ability with our technology to take a sample of your handwriting. It actually takes about an hour to fill that out. And then our graphic designers and our technology duplicate that handwriting to a T. And I mean the indentation of every line, the spacing between each line, the lean, of your hand, the way you dot your I's and your T's. I'm left-handed, so I have a tendency to kind of tilt my hand up a little bit because I don't want that ink getting on the corner of my palm. So my handwriting is really unique. So yeah, we can duplicate handwriting for anybody if they want to have their own custom handwriting. But I'll tell you something interesting. You said something that really kind of sparked my interest there about your car experience. I used to teach transparent selling workshops back in the mid-2000s to car dealers. And one of the questions I asked, and this was a really eye-opener for them with regards to how the business has changed, I would say to them, what's the first question a customer asks you when they come into your dealership? And they would say things like, what's the best price?
Right.
And then I'd get an answer like, do you still have this car in stock? I'm like, we're headed in the right direction. But the real answer to the question more often than not is, where's the bathroom? Because they've driven, they got the kids in the car. They've driven an hour because they found this car that they like, that's priced with what they want, has the features and the colors and everything else, because they've done 85 or 90% of that work before they ever come to the dealership. So I like dealers to really think about that, because acquiring that customer isn't inexpensive. It usually costs them $700 to $800 in a normal market to acquire that customer through their marketing efforts. So shouldn't your focus be, after they've picked the car that they want, you've negotiated the deal, they've driven home and they're happy, shouldn't that next step be, how do you keep them? How do you make them feel like, this is the place that I want to buy an automobile next time?
Right.
The experience was great. They have the inventory I want. And I think something as simple as a handwritten card that's personalized from the salesperson or the owner or whoever you think is designated, it's just an incredibly effective, cost-effective, and effective for your clients to do exactly that, right? Sell them the second car, the third car, the fourth car, and their friends and their family cars, because that's ultimately how you build your business most effectively in that industry.
Yeah, what comes to mind too, you mentioned the bathroom, is why McDonald's for decades has focused on a super clean bathroom, because they discovered was when people are out on the road traveling, whether it's around their city or on a road trip, they need to stop and use a restroom. And everyone hates a crummy restroom. And if your restroom is nice, guess what? When they come out, they might buy a milkshake and some fries. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So you have a dealership, make your bathroom really nice, because people will feel really good. It's a simple thing. The company that I was part of for decades, when we finally got to build our own corporate headquarters, and I was tasked with designing that structure, one of the things that we focused on was a really nice bathroom, not only for our guests, because we created a retail store we'd never had before, but for our employees. And my goal was to have a bathroom nicer than even our employees had at home. or the guests for that matter, because, and we did simple things like when you go into use the restroom, music was piped into the restroom. But in our case, it was cool car music and car sounds. And there's some obvious reasons to that. One is that it quiets or it muffles the other bathroom noises that no one wants to hear. But it also makes you feel like, oh, this is a fun place. I want to be here. And I think a lot of, especially high-end dealerships have figured that out. But I'll tell you, my wife and I, when we were looking to buy her first SUV, we were looking at the new X5 when it first came out, the new Acura SUV when it first came out, because we had an Acura Legend. And then I said, well, let's just go look at the Dodge SUVs and some of the others. And the difference in those, even the Acura dealership and the BMW dealership to the Dodge dealership or Ford, was so incredible to me. It was so bad going to those domestic dealers. I just went, no, I don't. If this is what it's like just to buy the car, I never want to come back here again to service my car. So no. I think dealers have figured that out now. Now, this was decades ago, but 25 years ago, I think, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the manufacturers also have done a great job with that, right? I mean, as a dealer, when I was in that world, this never-ending kind of upgrade of your facilities seemed to be money wasted. But I think that the smart dealers realized that creating an environment of comfort and of energy and excitement, it's worth it, because for customers, perception is reality, right? When they walk into your dealership, that first feeling, that first experience that they get is going to dictate how that the rest of that interaction with them goes. So I totally agree with you, and I think the dealer community and the manufacturers, the OEMs of the world, have done a good job with kind of taking that perspective, right? It's not just about the car; it's also about the facility and your ability to do it efficiently, right? To buy a car quickly, to minimize kind of the back and forth, and then when that service experience starts, make sure that they're comfortable when they come in for the first time for service and kind of know what the process is, so it just becomes seamless in their world.
Right, and not only that, but when you're in there for service, make it super comfortable and nice. Give them a cup of coffee and a snack, but then make it so they enjoy walking around, because guess what? They'll buy another new car in the next 3 or 4 years.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah, my father-in-law did that with a Cadillac. He went in one day to have his Cadillac serviced and walked out with a new car. And he goes, I had no idea I was going to buy a car that day. They made it so comfortable to be there. A painful process. Fixing your car, nobody wants to do that, right? But I want to get back to Handwrytten, because I want to understand how the process works as the consumer, whether it's... now, can individuals use your service versus dealerships and companies?
Yeah, they can. We'll probably write north of 2.5 million cards this year, and because our business is growing every year, and it's really kind of separated into 3 areas, right? One is just the consumer that goes onto handwritten.com and wants to write a birthday card, or maybe they have, they just had a wedding and they want to write thank you cards. So you can choose a card, you can design a card, and you can write it right in our app. Choose your handwriting style. You hit send, and we're going to write that card next business day, and it'll be out in your recipient's mailbox within 5 to 7, business days.
Nice.
The second one is, I want to do something more in bulk, right? I'm a business, and I want to reach out to these 1,000 people. You can download a very simple Excel file. Again, create that message. It'll create those custom fields so all the first names go in the right place, your signature's at the bottom. You can even adjust the message across some of those recipients as you like. You hit send, same thing. We're going to write those cards within a couple business days, and they're going to be mailed out. And then the last one is, more for our automotive clients or our the bigger organizations, and that's through integration, right? Whether we integrate into their dealer management system, or we integrate into their Salesforce or their HubSpot or their Spotify, and then that could be more automated. So every time you sell a car, or every time you sell something and you want to write that thank you note, every time you have a prospect that you're working with and you want to write a thank you follow-up note, all of that can be automated with your custom card and your custom message, and again sent out within 7 to 10 business days, so it's in their mailbox. So we've created ways to make it incredibly efficient, to take what is very simply a time-consuming process for anybody, whether it's one card or 10,000 cards, and automate it through this robotic technology.
That's very cool. I think it's so important. Now, how about this? Some people were never taught or trained how to write a thank you note. And I know this seems kind of simple, but some weren't. Do you offer help in that way for companies that say, well, what's the right way to say thank you to somebody? Are there some examples there that people can use so they they don't have to even go through the brain trust of how do I properly say thank you? I've never done this before.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a lot of resources on our website that can give you some guidance on that, but we also have account management for anybody that needs it. So you can call into our customer service line and say, give me some help. If you're a customer that is doing larger campaigns and reoccurring campaigns, we're going to help you all the way through that process. And then in our system, you can easily create and save templates along with your address book. So as you start to get those messages and you're like, boy, that one really worked, or I like that one, you can save that template and then easily kind of just drop that into the message file. Pick the handwriting font that you think really expresses both yourself and your message the best, and then off you go. Hit send, and we're going to write that card for you.
I think it's tremendous. I'll ask you listeners out there, when was the last time you bought something that was a little higher end, or maybe a lot higher end, like an automobile, and you received a handwritten thank you note? I'll bet most people right now go, never. I'll give you another great example. My daughter's worked for 8-9 years at Nordstrom. Great company. She worked for many years training on the sales floor and then managing entire store. And that's something they do. And I went there when my daughter got married about 3-4 years ago, bought a new suit, new outfit for the wedding day and everything, and received a handwritten thank you from the sales guy that helped me pick out, because I hadn't needed a suit in a long time and a tie and all that. And I called my daughter and said, wow, you guys always do this? She goes, well, we try, but it's hard to get our salespeople to actually do it, but we do try, because you build that rapport. And I'm talking about it today. I just gave Nordstrom a little ad there. You should go and buy a suit from that store. Nobody else, because no one else has ever sent me a thank you for buying clothes from them. So yeah, I think it's tremendous what you guys are doing, and I'm so excited to.
Yeah, and look, it's really from a human nature standpoint. If I'm doing sales training or coaching with anybody, I say, look, the art of connection or the art of communication with people is that they want to be heard, they want to be understood, and they want to be appreciated, right? That's how you connect with another human being. And in a sales environment, right, there's, whether it's the first sale, the second sale, the fourth sale, there's always some level of anxiety or, fear coming in. But that level of comfortability that you're working with somebody that hears you, they understand you, and they appreciate you is how you start to create that reoccurring sale and really that commitment from that buyer that they're going to do business with you first and foremost, if you have the products and goods that they need at that point in time. And people like that, right? They like to go into the idea of buying something, whether it's a car or a suit, knowing that the experience is going to be good and what they're looking for is going to be taken care of. Right? They don't want to go through the jumping the hoops process. It's just not what they're looking to do. So if you hear them, you understand them, and you appreciate them, and that handwritten note is really the best way for hundreds of years, right? We're not talking about a new practice here. We're talking about something that's been around since the dawn of time. Is really just an incredibly nice way of saying thank you and I appreciate you.
Right. But unfortunately, it's become a lost art. So handwritten robotic writing machines, you guys have brought back that lost art in a new, very robotic way, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it's really cool technology. So we have over 200 robots. We build all of the robots in-house.
Wow.
So we have 3D printers and laser cutters, and all of the armatures we build in-house. We write all our own software, and we don't just handwrite the card, right? We handwrite the envelope, right, which is incredibly important for our businesses, and we put a first-class stamp on it. And it really works because, typically somebody's going to receive 3,000 emails, and there's nothing wrong with emailing thank yous or emailing your customers, but the likelihood of them seeing it goes down. If you're texting them, again, a great way to communicate with them, but they're going to get 500 to 1,000 texts, so there's no guarantee that they'll respond to it or even understand it's a number from you. Phone calls are great, right? But people don't always pick up. So you're left leaving a voicemail, which again is a very good practice. But people, I kind of challenge you to test this. Most people receive 1 to 2 actual handwritten cards in their mail a month, whether it's from a family member or an invite. So when they get that, the likelihood of them opening it and seeing it and getting that level of appreciation of what you did is very, very high. I mean, we do surveys and we see it's about a 90% open rate. 9 out of 10 people are going to actually open it and see it, and oftentimes save that card. Right?
Yes.
Whether it's on their refrigerator, sitting on their desk, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've gone to visit people who've been guests on my show, and I walk into their office, and there's the card I sent them a year ago.
Yeah, it's still sitting there.
It's still sitting there. Yeah, because I do personal cards. I have them printed through a company called Moo, M-O-O. and I send my own pictures. Some of them include things that relate to that specific guest, if I can pull that off. But yeah, I think it's tremendous. So Handwrytten, wonderful. I'll put a link to the website so all you listeners can learn. Now, we've talked an awful lot about your company. We haven't talked much about you and cars, and I want to touch on this a little bit, as I do with all my guests. Is there a special vehicle story in your life, a car that you've had that really stands out for you?
Yeah. I was thinking about this. So I was at this Mercedes store back in the early 2000s, and somebody came in and traded in a 1992 E300 Cabriolet, silver with a silver interior, black top.
Nice.
And when I say it was the most perfect car you had ever seen, I think it had, I'm challenging my memory here a little bit, but I think it had a little over 26,000 miles on it. So I fell in love with that car. It had a wood steering wheel that they had put on it, automatic top. The top was absolutely perfect. Obviously, I had the ability to have that car thoroughly inspected by our technicians. It had every piece of service work. So I bought that car, and and I didn't need it. That's the funny part. I didn't need the car, right?
Yeah.
At that point in time, I had 3 kids. We had a Chevy Tahoe. I had a pickup truck. Kind of that's back in those days, because we were fixing houses and building decks and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I had a pickup truck that was that. I had a company demo.
Yeah, so you didn't need a car.
I didn't need that car at all. But when I looked at that car, I just couldn't say no.
Yeah.
So I had that car for about 10 years, and I maybe put another 10,000 miles on it.
Sure.
But those were 10,000 miles of driving that were just for me, right? In the summertime, I'd put that top down, and, I'd stick the kids all in the back, and they'd scream, putting the top down. I'd take them to their baseball games or, or wherever we were going. And it was just a great experience. Yeah. And, I had to sell that car finally, because we ended up moving, and I didn't have space for it. And so, it was a tough day when I sold that car 10 years later.
Well, somebody else got to experience that joy. And, those kinds of cars are few and far between. My wife and I, our first new car was a 1985 Jetta GLI. We had just been married a year. First time we bought a new car. And we took such good care. I mean, everyone knows me for being the car maniac. If you want to buy a nice used car, buy it from Mark Green. And when we went to sell it, we were looking at the new Acura Vigor. If you remember the Acura Vigor, the 5-cylinder.
I do remember the car.
Yeah, and you'll laugh at this.
Yeah, it was unusual because it was a 5-cylinder.
Right.
That's right.
It was the lesser expensive of the high-end Acura Legend. And we went in to buy that car. And of course, you'll love this story, because the salesperson, after we drove it, and he could see that, we were going to buy a car. He said, well, your wife should really drive the Legend to compare. And I looked at him and went, you butt. I know what you're up to, because once she drives that Legend, that's going to be. And long story short, we bought the Legend. However, I was going to sell the Jetta, and the dealer said, well, let's look at your car for a trade. And I said, no, you won't ever give me what I want for that car, because I've taken such good care of it. Well, let me just look at it. So their inspector came and got it. He came back into the office and he said, I would like to buy this car from you. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, and he even looked at the salesman and he said, we're never going to give him what this car's worth. I want to buy it from you. What do you want for it?
Oh, for himself?
Yeah, for himself. Because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was so, he goes, even the inside of the engine hood is clean. And I said, well, yeah, that's the way I keep all my cars. And so the salesman goes, well, I want to see this car. So he went out and then he came back and he said, well, I want to buy that car. Now, whether that was a little trick
you got him into a bidding war, did you?
It was
That's exactly what you did.
It was pretty funny. But the inspector guy, he bought it. And that guy kept in touch with me for years. It became his family car. He would send me notes how much they enjoyed. He goes, thank you for making this our new used car. We've never had, been able to buy a new car. This was like buying a new car. And I think the thing was 8 years old. Had a lot of miles on it, but we'd taken care of it. But yeah, when you take good care of cars, you can get some money back for it. I like to do this little test with people. I become a bit of a car psychologist. If you were reincarnated, if you were manifest as a vehicle with all your personality traits, Bill, this isn't what you want to be, though. What would you be and why?
What kind of car would I be?
Yeah, if you were, now again, this isn't about being what you want to be. This is how you act and who you are as a human being as it is personified in a vehicle.
Again, it's such a good question. It really is. I had the opportunity, I was lucky enough because I spent almost 17 years in the automobile business that I got to drive a lot of different cars.
Yeah.
And I think the one that reflects kind of who I am the most, and this is a little odd, it's the Audi A8.
Ooh,
right?
I like
so
it.
The Audi, the Audi A8 is one of those cars that had the combination of everything that I like about a car, and I think kind of speaks. So it's comfortable, right? Incredibly comfortable car. Those cars are like driving in an easy chair, right? They're powerful, right? So you can drive them elegantly, but when you need to hit the gas and be more aggressive, they react well. The handling for a car that size is incredibly efficient. And when you pull up, they kind of make a statement. It's a little understated.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not like you're pulling up in a Porsche Cabriolet or an Aston Martin, right? You're not trying to take over the room, but you're basically saying, yeah, I got all my stuff together and recognize me, right? I don't need to be at the front of the line, but I certainly want you to know I'm here. So I think the Audi A8 really kind of, it's got everything. It's just got class and comfort and handling and performance and everything that you would want. Like, I think that's what resonates with me.
Well, there you go. A great answer to that question. How about a great book? We love books here on Cars Yeah. And you being a coach, a mentor, I suspect you enjoy great books that are teaching books, if you will, perhaps. But is there a great book you could share with us today?
Moneyball is the book that resonated with me the most. I'm a huge sports fan, just a massive sports fan. And I love how that book changed the perspective and the perception on what a great athlete and a great team is. And a lot of times it is about the numbers, right? It's not just about looking at somebody and going, oh, they're a 5-tool player. I've seen 5-tool players before. Because that's important, right? A great scout can look at a player, but understanding the nuances of their performance and from a data standpoint. And that's kind of how my work life is always matriculated, right? You find somebody that's talented and you can coach them, but the numbers will tell the story. And I think, operating your business, from that perspective, that the data, and if you really understand the data, you can put people into positions to be successful. The Greek god of walks, I think, was the line that I remember, right? Like, who cares about walks? Then all of a sudden they took the idea of getting more walks and turned it into, winning a division, in the American League West. So I always loved that book, and I think that's probably what resonates with me the most.
Book by Michael Lewis. Yeah, great book for
correct.
sure. There's another book I'll mention that I think might bring a smile to your face, and that is Customers for Life by Sewell, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that was one that we used in our business to help our salespeople on the phones better work with people. We even used a lot of the techniques that he talked about using in his car dealerships there. And I think he was basically started out of Texas. Little things like a little bowl of candy when a customer goes to pay for their service, so that experience is a little more sweet than it could be sour, because no one likes to pay to get their car fixed. And the dealership that I have my car serviced at, BMW Northwest, they practice the guidelines. They've got that nice little bowl of very high-end chocolates for customers to enjoy.
Yeah, it's the little things, right? It's the little things. It's right, just like data, right? It's understanding the little things to optimize your business and optimize the customer experience. Yep. I think that's great.
And a clean bathroom.
A clean bathroom. There you go. Start there.
Yes.
Start there.
Yeah, start there. Everybody should start there. How about the ultimate drive? I enable my guests to enjoy this. I'm going to buy you any car. You can take it anywhere, and you can take anybody, even somebody who's no longer with us. So somebody from history, somebody that you've lost maybe in your life. What does the ultimate drive look like for you?
So, I've driven the Pacific Coast Highway, but my wife and I were in Italy, and we drove the Amalfi Coast.
Ooh,
we weren't driving. We were actually part of a group. But as I was driving down there, I said to myself, man, would I love just to take a road trip along the Amalfi Coast and just stop at different places, the cafes, right? It's literally the most breathtaking place in the world. I probably would want to do it in a convertible, right? That feels right to me, right? That you're driving along the coast, and the person I would take would be my wife, right? So we could experience that together, and and then come back with the stories that we tell to everybody about our journey and our experiences along the way.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think I'll put you in a Ferrari. I think that's going to be fitting.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty cool. Yeah.
I think that would work for me. Yeah. I like that idea.
You think? Okay. I think so too.
Absolutely. Just the hum of the engine against the ocean crashing along the thing. I mean, I don't think you can make the experience any better than that.
No, that would be pretty cool. So yeah, I love it. Well, Bill, you've taken us on a wonderful journey today, and I can't thank you enough for sharing Handwrytten robotic writing machines. I'll put links to the website on Bill's show notes page. They're easy to find, but just keep in mind the spelling's a little different. It's HANDWRYTTEN. I like that play on that. You check them out. Whether you're an individual or, more importantly, a business, I can tell you from decades of experience of being in business and using handwritten notes, this will come back to you in many, many ways. It still does for me today because I write all my guests here on the show, including Bill, will receive one from me, a handwritten note. So check out Handwrytten robotic writing machines. Before I let you go, could you share some words of maybe inspiration, wisdom, a success quote, or a mantra with our listeners?
Yeah, so, I think we talked about, the idea of personalization, but, I have this philosophy on sales, right? And it's pretty simple, right? Essentially, you don't want to sell something to somebody that they don't need, right? You don't, right? Because you can, right? I don't believe in anything like a close or the idea that I'm going to force somebody into something. And salespeople try to do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
The idea behind sales is to really understand what they want. But the flip side of that, right, is you don't want to not sell something to somebody that they do need. Right. So I really, that resonates with me because the idea of what we do is, whether it's handwritten or any other product, is we provide a tremendously good service. We need to educate our customers on how it can help them in their business and then allow them to decide if that particular, process for them, handwritten notes, really works. And I think what we find is when we take that approach, right, that we give you all the information, that you're going to come to the conclusion whether you need that service or you don't need that service. And more often than not, they do decide they need it. So the art of sales and the art of business is really positioning that customer to better understand if that product or service is going to work for them and then aligning that all the way through.
Yeah. Well said. Absolutely. I want to do a shout out. Thank you to Reidy at executive. He's an executive at Asylum Public Relations for introducing me to Bill. So thank you very much for making the introduction. Asylum Public Relations, they service a lot of great customers. So check them out as well. Bill, thank you for being so generous today with your time and your expertise and for sharing this very cool new technology that your company is doing. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you maybe on the Amalfi Coast. That would be cool. Somewhere down the road.
That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. And thank you to all your listeners. I truly appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.